Hello everyone. Today and last class we have discussed about what is a gate and what are the phases which we can found in gate and how the phases in gate are different from one to another. So today we are going to discuss about what are the gate terminologies which we are using or how we can term or how we can mention different terminologies in the in normal gate cycle. So there are two things which can happen in a gate cycle, that is time and distance. We can measure the time which required to complete a gate cycle, or we can measure the distance which the gate cycle has covered in a single phase. So these are the two things which we can measure in the gate cycle. So first one is time we can measure, and second one distance we can measure. So there are two variables. There are two groups of variables which we can determine in this gate. First one is temporal variables, and second one is distance variables. So temporal variables. These are the variables which include stance time, single leg and double support time, swing time, stride and step time, cadence and speed. So all the variables or all the determinants which comes under this time measurement is considered as temporal variables, whereas the distance variable is usually we are measuring the distance or the measurable determinants or measurable terms in the gate are known as the distance variables. These include stride length, step length, width of the gate, and degree of toe. So all the measurements which we can, all the geometrical measurements which we can take in the gate cycle is known as distance variables, and whereas the temporal variables are the one where the time denotes the properties of gate cycle. So now we are going to discuss in detail about what are all these terminologies and what does it mean. So first one is stance time. So as its name suggests, stance time. So when we discussed about gate cycle, we got two phases, stance phase and sync phase. And in the how much time is taking for that to complete the stance phase is known as stance time. So stance time is the amount of time that elapses during stance phase of one extremity in a gate cycle. So a gate cycle completes when the gate cycle starts from the heel strike and ends in next heel strike. So in between these two successive heel strike, the time which required to complete a single stance phase is known as stance time. How much is time which required to complete a stance phase is known as stance time. Second one is single support time. It's the amount of time that elapses during the period when only one extremity is in support is on the supporting surface of gate cycle. So as we said, as we seen earlier, we are walking. So alternatively, our foot are in touch with ground and in air or in swing phase. So how much time one extremity is in contact with the ground is known as single support time. So only one single foot will be in contact with the ground. So that's the time which is known as single support time. And next one is double support time. As the name suggests, both the limbs, how much time both the limbs are in the surface or are in contact with the surface is known as double support time. So double support time is the amount of time spent with both feet on ground during one gate cycle. So double support time basically means both the limbs or both the foot are in ground. So how much time in a gate cycle both the limbs or both the foot are in touch with the ground is known as double support time. So all this time, all these measurements can be variable from child to an adult and to a geriatric or an old age population. So when we look into the old age population, the single support time is very less in old age people, and the double support time is high. It mainly because they have some mobility issues, they have some physical problems, either strength loss or pain or any physical problems can increase the double support time and can reduce the single support time. So that's the difference which you can found in the normal population or in the aging population according with this support time. So all the aged population has a less single support time and a high double support time when we compare with a normal or an adult person. And next is stride length. So what is the stride length? Is the linear distance between two successive events that are accomplished by the same lower extremity during gait. The linear distance from the point of one heel strike of one lower extremity to the point of next heel strike of the same extremity. So the stride length means the distance between two successful heel strike or a two subsequent heel strike of a single leg. So that is known as a stride length. So in this you can measure this is the stride length. So what it means, it's the distance from one heel strike to another heel strike of a same leg in a consecutive step. So this is known as a stride length. The distance between one heel strike to another heel strike of the same extremity in a successive gait cycle. So that is known as stride length. Next one is stride duration. How much is the time which required to complete this stride length is known as a stride duration. Refers to the amount of time which takes to accomplish one stride length. So that is known as a stride duration. And next one is step length. It's the linear distance between two successive points of contact of opposite extremities, and it is usually measured from the heel strike of one extremity to the heel strike of opposite extremity. So in stride length we have discussed about the distance between heel strike of one extremity to the heel strike of that same extremity in a successful gait cycle. So that is known as a stride length. But when it comes to step length, it's the distance, it's a linear distance between two complete steps or a two consecutive steps. That means heel strike of one foot to the heel strike of another foot is known as step length, or the distance. Basically step length is the distance between two successive heel strike of both the extremities. So this is the step length. So step length is basically means stride distance between heel strike of one extremity to the heel strike of another extremity. So this is the step length, and stride length is basically on the same limb, or the distance between two successive heel strike on the same limb is known as stride length, and whereas step length is known as two successive heel strikes of opposite extremities or both the extremities known as step length. Next is step duration. So how much time which is required to complete a single step is known as step duration. It refers to the amount of time spent during a single step. Measurement is usually expressed as seconds per step. So how much seconds is required to complete a successive step is known as a step duration. And next is cadence. Cadence is the amount of the number of steps taken by a person per unit time. So we have to define cadence as number of steps in a specified time or in a unit period of time. So either it can be in a second or it can be a minute. So usually we take the minute. So the cadence is known as number of steps in a minute is known as a cadence, or we can define it much more clearly. Number of steps in a unit time is known as cadence. Cadence may be measured as the number of steps per second or minute, but the minute is a much more preferred one because we can have an accurate value or a much elaborate or much convinced value when we look into number of steps per minute. But whenever we look into number of steps per seconds, it can vary or it won't give you a consistent value. So that's the reason why we are taking the number of steps in a minute. So in a minute there is no much more variability when we compare with a multiple cadence. So that's the reason why we are taking cadence in a minute. So usually cadence is known as number of steps per minute or a unit time. Next is walking velocity. So walking velocity is the rate of linear forward motion of the body which can be measured in meters or centimeters per second. So velocity, the basic definition of velocity, linear movement of a particular subject in relation with time. So that is known as velocity. So whenever we are not mentioning the direction of that particular movement, then we can call it as a speed of the gate or walking speed. So walking speed is usually walking speed is something when we are not mentioning about the direction of movement. So whenever if we are mentioning the direction of movement, then we can talk about velocity. So walking velocity is the linear forward motion of the body which can be measured in meters per second. So when we talk about walking speed, in walking speed we actually do not want to talk about the direction of that particular movement, but how much distance is covered in a minute is known as walking speed. So walking velocity or speed is basically the equation is meter per second. So how much distance covered in the particular time of period is divided by the time is known as velocity or speed. So the equation for walking velocity or walking speed is the distance walked divided by the time. So distance walked which we are taking in meters and the time which we are converting into seconds will give you the speed or the velocity of that particular gauge cycle or that particular person. Next is step width or the width of walking base. So how much is the distance between two successive steps? It's not the linear direction, but the width of two successive steps is known as step width. By measuring the linear distance between the midpoint of heel of one foot and the same point on the another foot. So how much is the width which is causing? So basically how we can measure. So this is the midpoint of heel and this is the another midpoint of heel. So the distance between two midpoints of heel in both the limbs is known as step width or the width of the step. So next is degree of toe out. So how much is the degree the toes or the foot is rotated to the sides is known as degree of toe out. Represent the angle of foot placement and may be found by measuring the angle formed by each foot line of progression and a line intersecting the center of heel and the second toe. So this is the foot angle. So it's a basically angle between so it's an angle formed between the line of progression. So this is the line of progression and a line which is intersecting heel and the second toe. So this is the angle of toe. How much is the degree where the toe are angled in a particular gauge cycle? So it is an angle between the line of progression and the line which is passing to the heel and the second toe. So that is known as the degree of toe or the angle of foot. So these are the measurements which we are actually, these are the terminologies which we are determining in a gauge cycle. So next we are going to talking about what are the joint motions which are happening in the gauge cycle or what are the joint kinematics which we can found in the gauge cycle. So joint motion, another way in which gait can be described is through measuring the trajectories of lower extremities and joint angles. So as we said, we have some basic parameters. As we said earlier, all the gait terminologies, we can identify the properties of gait in a way how we can measure all the terminologies, all the parameters which we have used in the gait cycle. And the another way how we can identify this gait and how we can identify the normal gait cycle is by measuring the joint angles or the joint forces which are acting on that particular joints during this gait cycle. So if we are talking about movements which are occurring in the joint, we are talking about joint kinematics in the gait cycle. And if we are talking about the forces which is acting on that particular joint during the gait cycle is known as kinetics of gait cycle. So today we are going to discuss about what are the kinematics or what are the movements which are happening in the lower extremity joints during gait cycle. So there are sagittal plane joint angles which can occur in the gait cycle. There are transverse plane and there are also frontal plane movements which are happening in a normal gait cycle. So in sagittal plane, the approximate range of motion needed in normal gait and in time of occurrence of the maximum flexion and extension of position for each majority of joint may be determined by examining joint angle profiles. So if we ask the patient to walk, and whenever we observe that particular gait phase, we can identify that there are some specific amount of movements which require to complete or which require to initiate that particular gait phase. So whenever we talk about heel strike, that means our heel is going to touch the ground. So in that position, there are some requirements in each joint to get a proper heel strike. So all these things can be identified by a proper joint range of motion examination. So these are the basic joint angles, or these are the basic amount of movements which required in the sagittal plane to complete or initiate or complete a normal gait cycle. So whenever we talk about initial contact or the heel strike, the hip should be flexed for 20 degrees. There should be at least 20 degrees of flexion in the hip joint to initiate this initial contact phase, and the knee should be in a completed extension, and the ankle joint should be positioned in a neutral. It should not be dorsal flex or it should not be plantar flex. It should be in a neutral position. So this is the requirement to complete the initial contact. The hip joint should be in 20 degrees of flexion, and all the other knee and ankle joint should be in a neutral position. And next, when we come to the foot flat, what happens? The hip will reduce the flexion to 15 degrees, and the knee joint will go for a 15 degrees of flexion, and ankle joint will go for a 5 degrees of dorsiflexion. So these movements has to happen during foot flat. So if there is any pathology or if there is any injuries which prevent these movements or which limit these actions, can have some impact on this foot flat phase in the normal gait cycle. And next is mid stance. So in mid stance, what happens? The hip will comes to neutral position, and the knee joint can reduce the flexion to 5 degrees, and the ankle joint will go for dorsiflexion about 5 degrees. So this happens during mid stance. And during helo phase, what happens? The hip will go for extension. So basically, when we start the gait cycle, the hip start from the flexion, and when it comes to mid stance, the hip is almost in the neutral position, and whenever it goes for heel off, the hip is going for extension. So in heel off phase, the hip will go for extension, and ankle and knee joints are in a neutral position. In toe phase, the hip joint will maintain the extension of 20 degrees. At the same time, the knee joint can go for a 30 degrees of flexion, and the ankle will go for 20 degrees of plantar flexion. So these movements will make the clearance of the foot from the ground is much more easy, because our knee joint is going for 30 degrees of flexion, and the ankle joint is going for a 20 degrees of plantar flexion. So because of this, the ground clearance will be smooth and easy. And if there is any person who is not able to attain this 30 degrees of knee flexion or 20 degrees of plantar flexion, can have some limitations or can have some difficulties in clearing the foot from the ground. And next is stance swing phase. During swing phase, what happens? Again, the hip joint is going for maximum flexion. That means we are taking our limb forward. So what happens during acceleration phase? The hip joint will go for 20 degrees of flexion, knee joint will go for maximum 60 degrees of flexion, and there will be a 10 degrees of plantar flexion. And when it comes to mid stance, hip joint is going for 30 degrees of flexion, knee joint is also on 30 degrees of flexion, and ankle joint is in a neutral position. And next is deceleration, or the phase which is going to start with the next gait cycle. At that time, the hip joint is going for 30 degrees of flexion, 0 degrees of extension, 0 degrees of knee joint movement, and 0 degrees or the neutral position in ankle joint. And again this cycle continues. Whenever it comes to, then after this it going for initial contact. After this deceleration phase, it is going for initial contact. So in the initial contact, again the same cycle continues. So these are the basic movements which are required in the sagittal plane to complete a normal gait cycle. So this is how we can graphically represent the movements which are happening in each joint in a sagittal plane. So when we talk about hip joint, what happens? At the beginning of gait cycle, the hip joint is in a flexion, and when the gait cycle is progressing, it is going for extension, and it will go for maximum of 30 degrees of extension. And when we are about to complete the gait cycle, again is going for a flexion. So this is the graphical representation how we can represent the movements which are happening in hip joint during a successive gait cycle. So first it begins with the flexion, and it begins with a 20 degrees of flexion, and it will go for a maximum of 30 degrees of extension. Then again it goes back to the position of the initial phase. And next, in the knee joint, what happens? It's in the 0 degrees of extension. So in the beginning it starts with the 0 degrees of extension, and it have mild progression to the flexion of 20 degrees at the beginning of gait cycle, and again it comes back to 0 degrees of flexion, and at the peak of the gait cycle it can go for up to 60 degrees of knee joint flexion, and again it comes back to normal position. So this is what happens in knee joint. In the ankle joint, it starts with almost about 0 degrees of or in a neutral position of angle, then it goes for a plantar flexion about 5 degrees, and again it goes for dorsiflexion about 10 degrees, and comes to plantar flexion of maximum of 20 to 30 degrees, and again it comes back to normal position when we complete our gait cycle. So this is the movements which are happening in gait cycle during in sagittal plane movements which are happening in the gait cycle. Next is frontal plane. So what are the movements which are happening in frontal plane during this gait cycle? Joint angles during first 20 degrees of stance. The pelvis and contralateral side drops about 5 degrees, which result in adduction of hip joint. So in frontal plane, the basic movements which are happening in hip joint is adduction or abduction, which is mainly caused by this pelvis drop. The hip abducts smoothly about 5 degrees of abduction, peaking about toe off and return to neutral at the initial contact. So whenever at the beginning of gait cycle, the hip is in a neutral position between abduction and adduction. But when it comes to toe off, it will give you a maximum peaking of 5 degrees of abduction, and again it comes back to neutral position when we are going for initial contact. And knee remains more or less neutral except for a brief abduction peaking at about 7 degrees of mid swing, and then returns to normal position. The angle everts from 5 degrees of inversion to 5 degrees of eversion in early stance, and inverts about 15 degrees during push-off phase. So these are the frontal plane movements which are happening during gait cycle in lower extremity. So this is the graphical representation how we can represent the frontal plane movements which are happening in joints. So in hip joint, as we said, it's almost in a neutral position, but at the beginning of range of motion, it can go for a adduction movement, and at about 60% of gait cycle, it will give you a peak of hip abduction, and again it comes back in normal position. And in knee joint, it's almost in a neutral position, but when it comes to toe off phase or in the 80 degrees of 80% of gait cycle, it can give you a slight almost about 10 degrees of abduction in the knee joint. And but when it comes to ankle joint, the ankle joint at the beginning it's in a inverted position, and it comes to everted position, and it gives you a maximum peak of 10 degrees of inversion at about 60 to 80% of gait cycle, and again comes back to normal position. So these are the movements which are happening in frontal plane. And next is transverse plane. What are the rotatory forces which are actually happening during this gait cycle? The hip externally rotates until approximately mid swing, and then internally rotates to near neutral before initial contact. So the rotatory movements which are happening in hip joint are the external rotations, which is mainly occurring during the mid swing phase, and it comes back to, or it internally rotates to, when it approaches to initial contact. So the in hip joint, the basic movements are happening external rotation, internal rotation, and external rotation is mainly happening at the mid swing phase, and after that it will go for internal rotation it comes back to neutral position when we attempt for initial contact phase. Next is the knee joint remains relatively neutral throughout most of the gait cycle, but externally rotated in gait cycle in late stance until about flat foot. So in knee joint, there is not much more of rotatory forces, but there can be some amount of external rotation when we attempt for late stance phase. And again, it comes back to neutral position when we attempt for a new gait cycle. The angle has a rapid reversal of rotation from about 40 degrees of gait cycle until the initial contact and reaches a point of maximum external rotation at about foot flatness. So in angle joint, it will give you a rapid rotatory movements and it will give you a maximum external rotation when we try for foot flat. So these are the movements which are happening in the transverse plane. In hip joint, it basically start with external rotation and it will give you a peak of external rotation about 5 to 7 degrees at the 80% of gait cycle, and again it comes back to normal position. In knee joint, what happens is almost in a neutral position, but in the deceleration phase it can, or in the mid swing phase, it can give you a 10 degrees of external rotation, and again it comes back to normal position whenever we try for initial contact. And in angle joint, they are basically external rotation. At the beginning, it will start with an internal rotation, then it will give you an external rotation, and again it will go for internal rotation in a multiple time when we come trying to complete our gait cycle.